The Sustainable Development Goal 5 concerns gender equality. The goal is to empower all women and girls in the world. At Apex, we are very deliberate about gender inclusion in both our engagement with smallholder farmers and in participation in the workspace. One of our favorite examples is the Natural Women.
My name is Ibrahim Abba. I'm FX Warehouse Manager, Pampaida. FX has really changed the life of natural women because so many of them have now owned land properties from working with FX.
This is a group of smallholder female farmers that when we encountered them had issues accessing inputs and financing due to the Nigerian environment for the smallholder farmer. Following our engagement, we were able to grow this 300 female smallholder farmers to over 8,200, and our relationship is still growing strong. These farmers have experienced over 50% increase in both their value and their volume, and they continue to be one of our stellar members on the exchange.
Ni ce mai suna Dija Sani, sakatariya ta Nasara Women. Ina nuna godiya ta ga wannan kamfani Effect. Da ba na iya samun takin da zan mallaki gonakina, amma yanzu ta alherin Allah ina samu har ma in ba ma waɗansu. Ina samu ta dalilin haka na samu karuwa gonaki har ma in samu watan karɓa a haka a waje. Gaskiya mun gode da abin da suke yi. Allah ya ci gaba da ƙara ƙarfafa su.
FX give discounts in terms of input to the women, and specifically even Nasara women, and it has been great for them.
While we continue to engage with more smallholder farmers to ensure everybody gets the same opportunity as their counterparts in accessing inputs and finance, we also are deliberate with our activities in the workspace by including females in our top management roles and creating platforms to engage more youth as well as girls in both our financial and tech spaces.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Please comment in the chat section if you can hear me. And welcome to the AFEX International Women's Day webinar. We're very excited to have everyone join in. And we're looking forward to an exciting conversation. So please, in the chat section, please let us know your name and where you're joining us from. And you can go ahead and hype up everyone in the comment section after you drop your name and where you're joining us from. My name is Adana, and I will be moderating today's session alongside an amazing panel of women, and we're very excited to jump into the conversation. Yeah, so I would like to set context as to why we decided to have this webinar. We at AFEX were very excited about empowering women and having, women in leadership position, or even just generally women, boosting up the ideas and making sure they're being heard. And so we decided to have this, a day before the end of the month, just to wrap up the Women's Month properly. And so we decided to bring women within the leadership sector in the financial market space to just have conversations around, what's been going on, how it feels for them being in that position, how they got there, and just what they are doing to also empower other women. And I want to allow them to introduce themselves and let us know what does empowering women look like for them. So anybody can go first. Okay, I love that everyone is smiling.
And I thought you would go first.
Okay, so thank you, Adana, for the for setting the context for this conversation. I'd like to start by wishing everybody a very good afternoon. I'm excited to be here this afternoon to discuss this all important topic alongside my women of timber and caliber on the panel, right? As we like to say in these parts. And so I'd also want to compliment you, Apex, on that very interesting video. I thought it was really good. It was very heartwarming to see how what we do on a daily basis can actually directly impact, those at the lower rung. So well done, guys. Right, so my name is Adai Jara. I'm the Managing Director of Emerging Africa Asset Management Limited, headquartered here in Lagos. And so as a managing director of an asset management firm, my role in the financial services or capital market on a broader level, and then specifically in the commodities market, would involve basically investing in commodities and related sectors and managing investment management portfolios for individuals and institutions, that seek exposure to the commodities market. This I find requires, a deep understanding of the dynamics of the commodities markets, which includes commodities trading, production, as well as consumption. As one of our key functions as an asset management firm involves basically helping investors diversify their portfolios, commodities can actually play a vital role in this regard, right? Commodities are known to have, low correlations with other asset classes, which can help to, overall, reduce the risk attached to one's portfolio, right? I also engage in market research with my team. I'd like to mention that as well. Market research and analysis, in order to stay informed about market trends and development. And this allows us to essentially make informed decisions on behalf of ourselves and our clients. And so that's pretty much my role in summary. In terms of empowering women, what it looks like to me, right? I would say that essentially it would mean educating and facilitating the involvement of women in value chains and markets that can either offer them opportunities for income generation, asset building, as well as wealth creation. I would also say that, empowering women in that way, can actually directly contribute to gender equality, poverty eradication, very important, as well as inclusive economic growth for women, folk, and their families. So if you empower women, you empower a family and a community, as we can see from the video that you shared at the beginning of this webinar. So I'll stop now for now to allow my other panelists to speak. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ada. So over to you, Laura.
Thank you, Ada. Thanks. And that was really an excellent intro. I almost feel like I have nothing else to add other than just say, my name is Laura Visayo-Kolawole. So I work at FBN Quest Asset Management. I run the Equities and Alternatives portfolio management business. And, when I think about the sector, when I think about even women's participation in general, and maybe it's just been my experience, I like to think that it's almost about focusing more on equity as opposed to equality when it comes to gender matters, and trying as much as possible to almost operate in a gender blind world where you ensure that you're focusing on ensuring there's equity in the way you deal with people. In terms of what we do on a day-to-day, I work in a firm at FBN Quest Asset Management that is, funnily enough, quite women heavy. So we almost have to make a conscious decision to sort of get more men into the team. So if you look in our senior management cadre, for example, apart from our MD, it's pretty much all women. So maybe I have a bit of a different perspective because I find that women within our firm have really been able to be very well supported and to excel. But ultimately, when I think about the country and really in Nigeria, where we all operate in our economy today, why I like programs like this is that it's ultimately about helping women to believe in themselves. Sometimes the problem may just be that we're not so great at putting ourselves out there. And so, that's something that I think, so when I say we are, maybe I mean I am. So it's something that, I'm learning to do more, and I think that many women can benefit from that. But ultimately, when we look at the asset management industry, I think it's one that is male dominated, right? When we look at the commodity space and the various asset classes, it is male dominated, but I think that there is room, especially with encouragement, for women to really excel. On my day-to-day, I spend my time mostly managing portfolios. So I am a portfolio manager. And that really means managing investments for clients across various assets, including commodities. We've had such an excellent partnership with Apex over the years, and really the work that Apex has done since, I think it was 2012, when Apex started, to where they are today in really opening up that commodities market, really democratizing commodities, really trying to create that value chain and, that farm to table kind of mentality that, that Apex has really, really worked. I would say amazingly, to be honest, when you think of where the other commodity exchanges are today, versus how far Apex has come. And so, we've enjoyed working with Apex in really introducing commodities into our portfolios, helping our clients get long-term diversified returns, all those wonderful things that Ada spoke about that I'm not going to repeat. And so, it's been a wonderful experience, and I'm looking forward to the rest of the webinar, and learning from both Ada and Kofu to help me become, even more powerful woman.
Hi, everyone, and thank you, Laura. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kofu Arowolo. I'm a technology and banking professional. I have 18 years experience. I've served in the public and private sector, ranging from Credit Suisse in Switzerland to where, Laura and I are old colleagues, FB and Quest, where I headed up the technology division, as well as the public sector and infrastructure division of the investment banking business. I'm very passionate about leveraging technology to create and empower Nigerians, particularly those in underserved markets. Right now, I'm CEO of a payments fintech called Woven Finance. We were created essentially to democratize access to financial services for, as I mentioned, those in the underserved markets. We do this by creating products and services that provide a lower barrier to entry for people to enter the financial services market. We provide optimized payments to allow African businesses to grow, as we see commerce as one of the significant ways for Nigeria, the Nigerian economy to grow. And we also engage in community development initiatives as well. I'd like to thank Apex for inviting me on this panel today. It's certainly not the first initiative that Apex has invited me to, shall I say. But nonetheless, it's a pleasure to be here. And I look forward to sharing my insights on how women can contribute to growing the Nigerian economy. We know that the Nigerian economy, or the Nigerian population, has about 210 million people, of which about 49.7 are women. So it makes absolute sense to ensure inclusion of women in an incentivized way, so that we can grow the economy, we can create socio and economic empowerment, and we can move our country forward, really and truly. I think it's time for Africa to really, really take this opportunity that, tapping into the resources and the opportunity that women have to offer to contributing to our society and economy. So thank you, and look forward to an insightful conversation.
Thank you so much, Kofu. Thank you so much, Laura. Funta, over to you.
I actually can enable my camera.
Okay, we'll try and sort that out for you right now.
Okay, but
yeah, you can go ahead and introduce yourself.
Sure. So I actually would rather be on the attendees side than being on the panelists, because you have three amazing women that are done so much within the capital market. I've had an interaction with at least two of them. I know Kofu won't remember me very well. It was way back when there was a technology change, well back at Quest. But I've worked very excellently well with Laura in the last couple of years, right? And what do I do? My name is Oluwafun. So I work as the Vice President, Financial Market at Apex. And prior to Apex, I've always been in the capital markets, but again, offering technology services to capital market operators to make their operations efficient and help them turn out more profitable rather than being drilled down or being bogged down by worrying about hardware and software. We take that headache off them. Coming into Apex, the idea then is commodity is actually a very great area that many capital market operators are now looking into. And globally, commodity is at the core of any country's economic development. So for us at Africa, that we are endowed with all the resources to produce commodity, whether it is on the agri side, whether it's on the metal or energy side, how then do we merge the power of the capital market with the resources of the commodity space to unlock wealth across the value chain, from those that are producing the commodities to those that are either aggregating it, to those that are utilizing it, and even to the investors who create capital and liquidity within that space. So at the core of my desk is to then help create innovative products that shows how cash becomes commodity and how commodity becomes cash back in very easy and simple ways to understand. We've enjoyed tremendous support from the capital market. And interestingly, in my engagement with the portfolio managers, the biggest investors in all our products, the portfolios are actually being managed by women. I was on at a meeting on Tuesday, and the top portfolio managers, the three of them are women. And this is not an occurrence that I've seen in one place. I've seen it across very many big funds and big asset managers. So for me, I think if we have that kind of dynamics within the capital market, that means something interesting is happening, and it's worth looking at. It's what talking about, is what's encouraging the younger generation to also look forward to. So again, I'm looking forward to all the experiences of the panelists and also the questions that will come from the audience. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. I love that we have like a very good mix of ag, tech, and finance, with everyone having a little bit of experience across these three sectors. And really just want to then open up the conversation, and also want to let everyone who has joined to know that if you have questions, please drop them in the Q&A box. And then once we get to the question and answer section, we will definitely get to it. And also, if you have comments, please leave them in the chat session, and we'll be reading your comments as well as we go on. And just to open up the conversation, right, what would you say, and this is for everyone, what would you say has been, or is the most important contribution that you see women making in the sector that you operate in?
Okay, so I think we've kind of set a precedent in terms of the order of answering questions today. And so I'll just start us off, right? So in my opinion, I think that women make a very significant contribution to the African capital market and the Nigerian, broadly, and the Nigerian capital market, more specifically. In several ways, but there's some significant contributions that I feel that women, bring to the table, right? And so I think in terms of representation, which is something that, Women's Month, essentially advocates. It's a time for us to just reflect. Every Women's Day or Women's Month, on an annual basis, gives us the opportunity to actually reflect on how far we've come, and how much, lies ahead, in terms of, achieving complete gender parity. I don't know if it will happen in our lifetime though, but we can only we can only hope, right? And so in terms of, representation, women bring a lot of diversity to the capital market, by providing, that representation, at, management, board, as well as staff level, basically. And that, enables, the capital market, benefit from the different perspectives that women can bring to the table, if you know what I mean. And so even on the investment side as well, I would say that women are increasingly, becoming more active investors. I was at an event earlier on today, and, it came up in the course of the conversation where it was said that women are, women save a lot, but don't invest as much. And I was like, can that really be true? And then I thought about all the Ajo groups, that I've heard of over the years and all that. You find that, in every Ajo group, if there are like 10 of them or 20 of them, you'd most probably find, a significant majority would be the women, right? So, and in that sense, because I'm not a fan of Ajo, I've done it, I've been involved in it back in the day until I knew better. But now that I know better, I know that it really doesn't make sense to put your money away for 6 to 9 or how many months and just get back exactly what you put in, right? Without a penny more, on top of it. So from that perspective, I get where the speaker was talking about. But I do think, in the course of, the work that I do, I find that women are, becoming increasingly more savvy, about wealth generation, about augmenting their incomes, by investing their monies in ways, that will actually suit their risk appetite as well. And I feel that this essentially helps to boost liquidity, as well as expanding other investment options, across board. And so even through the investments, that women can make in the capital market, this can actually help to play a role in shaping market trends and behavior as well. I also feel that in terms of advocacy, right, and that's where, it's a charge to everyone in this room. If you find yourself in a leadership level or in a leadership position, we should bring, issues affecting women, front and center in those sorts of conversations, and help to advocate for policies that will promote, the transparency that we seek, the fairness, as well as ethical behavior in the capital market. And so all of us, as women working in financial services and capital market in the commodity space as well, we always have a duty to bring our expertise, our knowledge, and our skills to the table, and ultimately help to drive growth and innovation. So I think I'll stop here for now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ada. I love what you said. Yeah, about women saving more and not investing more, and really, I'm sure Funta would speak to that when it's her time. But I know that we've also noticed it even within our audience, on comics and investors as well. Is then how do we then make women move from saving to investing? And I think, yeah, that's very great point. Thank you so much. I'm Laura.
No, I think I really enjoyed the answer. And one of the things that you said struck me where you talked about gender parity. And I always wonder, can we actually achieve gender parity? To be honest, or even all men are not equal, right? So, I often struggle with that concept. And that, as I said, I'm more focused really on that equity side of things, where we're making sure that everybody has an equal chance or sort of fairness in the way that we're dealing with each other. When Kufo was responding, she said, near enough 50% of people in Nigeria are women. And she said 49.7. So that's 100 million plus of us. And to be honest, all it tells me is that, women are clearly key, and we need to be pulling our weight. We need to understand the power that we have, and the fact that I believe, again, that we can achieve anything. Sometimes it's just about putting yourself out there. And I use myself as an example because I think I'm perhaps the most familiar with my own circumstances. I have found that, the struggle with me has often been how do to put yourself out there, to toot your own horn, to take those extra steps, to do those things that put you in the spotlight. That's always been a, sort of a difficult area for me. And I think that many women struggle with that. When I think about women in leadership, women in capital markets, when Funta was speaking, she talked about, firms where there are lots of women in top places. And the one thing I think that women bring to discussions like that is really a diversity of views. When Ada was responding, she spoke about the fact that when you're in situations where you can advocate, where you're in leadership positions, you should be talking about the issues that affect women and the ways that policies, procedures can be written in ways that allow women to have an equal chance to excel. So it doesn't necessarily mean, for example, that if you interview somebody and the man is better, you just pick the woman because you want to create the right gender balance. No, but it's about creating an environment that a woman can truly excel. And be excellent. So not be chosen just because she's a woman. So, it's like if you're interviewing someone, you don't want to be that token woman that they're just putting on the board because they've said that we must have women on boards, which is an excellent policy. But what that should encourage us as women to do is aspire to an equitable world where we understand that we have the power to put ourselves out there and contribute in a real way, so that when we're chosen to positions of leadership, it is not because we're women per se, but it's because we're actually contributing something. And research has actually shown that when you have women in senior management, when you have gender diversity in management, it does translate to higher returns on equities for companies over the long term. So there is benefit in trying to get that gender balance. But the reason why I think I struggle with gender equality in itself is because I don't want us to just create gender equality for equality's sake. When women prosper, it does, like Ada mentioned, it does help a family, a generation to prosper. But we as women should, accept the help, but make that sort of a stepping stone to actually deserve the help. I don't know if you understand. So that's really, I think that's really the charge I want everyone to take away from this today is let's not just focus on being that woman that's on the board because they said we must have a woman on the board. But, we must endeavor to actually deserve the accolades that we get as women and to push ourselves so that we are chosen because we are the best or, best fit, right? So I think that would be my, I think I'll stop there.
Yeah, I almost started doing like this when you were talking. I loved what you said about, not just bringing women to the top just because there has to be gender equality, but because they actually have earned their position and they are going to excel in that position. I really, really liked that. Thank you so much, Laura. Kofo.
Yeah, thank you, Laura. You touched on a very, very good point around competence. And there's actually a study that says that, irrespective of competent level, men are more likely to apply for roles, even if they don't have the capabilities than women. So, I mean, that in itself is just a Pandora's box of things to think about for women, right? And you allude to that when you say, putting yourself out there, but there's something to be said for audacity, right? As women, right? Really, really taking the charge, as you suggested, and putting yourself out there. The chances are, if one is already thinking in that manner, they know what is required to succeed and they're willing to do what is required to succeed. So I think that, beyond on the supply side, the opportunities and the access being provided for women to enter, these markets, I also think that, there's the onus on women to actually take the charge, have the audacity to put yourself forward, put yourself out there. And really, what's the worst that can happen, there's a study by McKinsey that says, a more diverse workforce, as mentioned by Ada, actually performs better over time, is better at risk management, and it actually offers competitive edge because the products and services that are offered resonate more with your target market, and as we said, half of Nigeria is women. So it just makes sense to focus on, that gender equity. I'd like to once again touch on what Laura mentioned around equity, and I want to just charge the audience with the fact that it is about equity and not equality. You need to remember that we're complementary to one another. Men and women are different. We are not competitors to one another, and we bring very different things to the table. So that's really what equity is about, understanding the unique perspectives that we bring to the table and how we can grow together and create value together. We should also note that, there's one gender that has the ability to do things like give birth, and we cannot ignore things like that and the effect it has on women. In instances like that, obviously, women should be given the opportunity and choice to navigate that choice of theirs. And it is a choice, with regards to how it impacts their career, their profession, and how they engage, the wider community. So I just want to, talk about the fact that, audacity, and I think communities and networking events like this, encourage and promote, because of that representation, they promote the fact that women can achieve and succeed in their respective fields. But there's also that choice, and that's where equity comes into it. We shouldn't see everyone as the same and expect every the same thing from everyone, but we should understand the nuance of our respective genders, and then create opportunities and avenues to ensure that we can achieve the same results. So when we talk about gender equity, I do want to stress that we are complementary to one another. We are not the same. I also, with regards to investments, with increased access, women are moving from more the savings demographic to more the investing. I remember the last MTN issuance, there were actually more female investors than men. So that is actually changing over time. And guess what? It's really as a result of access, having the audacity, the representation, and also, I think there's also something to be said around, policies, government policies as well. In America, they have, there's a lot more research that can be done. In America, they have quotas whereby, a certain amount of engagement from a US government perspective has to be done with, perhaps people of color, women, et cetera, et cetera. There are also tax incentives for institutions that are more diverse. So there's some of the ways that the government can incentivize growth in that area and encouraging women to participate, and contribute to the society and economy as a whole.
I feel like after this question, we should just, take closing remarks and then we can all go. I loved what Kofo said about audacity and, the genders being complementary to each other. I feel audacity has been my favorite word this year. And I when people say it, I just start smiling. I just start smiling. Thank you so much, Kofo, for that. Funta.
Hi, thank you so much. And I think for me, so audacity is just a recurring theme. So when we talk about gender, male, female conversations, for me, the starting point usually is that we are all first human before we start talking about, is this a boy, is this a girl, or otherwise. And I expect that the society should treat everyone as human across every sphere of life. There's this interesting story about me while growing up. I happened to attend an all-girls school, but I am the only girl in a family of 5, 4 boys and 1 girl. And of course, you know what the resultant of that will be. A first-class classic tomboy. And academically, I wasn't doing so bad. So it was then time to pick the head girl of the school. And they laid down rules. He has to be the best student. And for whatever reason, there was an opposition not to make me the head girl. And what was the excuse? The female teacher said, I don't behave like a girl, that I am too masculine in everything that I do. Coincidentally, it was a male teacher that stood up for me. Male teacher understood where I was coming from because he also had a situation of boys and just only 1 girl. Long story short, I became the head girl. But what I am trying to say is there's a stereotype in terms of being a girl and how a girl is expected to behave. But we've not considered that everybody is first a human, and it's the audacity that can then, for the female folks, is then how audacious can you be? That is when you can then be given the audience and the platform. Having said that, the other part when it comes to the capital market and investment, and I'll go to what Adat mentioned. Yes, statistically, it's shown that women invest less than men, but statistically also, it shows that when women invest, they are more successful than men for a number of reasons. Number one, even though when men and making investment decisions. There's also this statistics that says that more than 50% of men have the confidence in themselves when they make when they make investment decision, compared to about 30% of women. They really second guess themselves, and that kind of make them hold back from investing. But that is also a safeguard, because that then prevents them from getting into Ponzi schemes and the rest of the investment vehicles that are not genuine. So women tend to, when they go within the investment landscape, tend to do more due diligence than men would do. They don't just jump on every investment, even though they invest less, but when they do, they are more successful than the male folks. And one of the reasons why women are also more successful when they invest than the men is that they tend to be patient. Men, when they invest, they need that 1 million naira to be 3 million, maybe because of the societal pressure of bills and being able to meet up with family obligation. But, and again, everyone playing within the capital market, particularly on the equity market side, will tell you that investing in stock require patience, because stock market will usually go through cycle. Right. And if you're looking for a fast one, then the stock market is not for you. Right. So that patient side, that's not, even though not investing as much as men, we've been able to invest more successfully than men. And therefore, for the women folks considering the capital market or working within the capital market space, whether as a service provider or you're just an investor, just be bold. First, we're first human, and every attribute that made a human being successful, you have that at your disposal. You have a head, a brain between your 2 ears, you're walking on 2 legs, you're not walking on 4 legs. So again, equity, audacity within the capital market, it's it for me. Thank you.
Ooh, thank you so much, everyone. Okay, I loved what Funta said about first being human, and still touching on that audacity again. Just following from what Funta spoke about, stereotype and bias. And I know that, you know, there are biases and stereotypes that have been attached to women, just in general. And I just want to ask, as women who are in leadership positions, who own companies, who have led huge teams, do you think that those biases and stereotypes have changed over time? And do you think that is still such a big hindrance as it used to be? Because I mean, I feel like we've evolved to a certain extent. So I want to ask, do you think that those gender biases and stereotypes have changed and become better? And if not, how do we then ensure that we fix that as women within, you know, each of the sectors? And I'm going to kick off with Kofo, and then Funta, and then Laura, and then Ada.
Thank you so much. In terms of stereotypes, you know, I'm happy to say that in my career, purely as a result of, you know, that word again, audacity, and, you know, my desire to, you know, achieve certain things, you know, the doors have opened and people have supported me along the way. However, you know, when I think back to my career, particularly in terms of leadership positions, if I think back to when I was at FBN Quest and I headed up the public sector and infrastructure division, I had to engage a lot with the public sector bodies, right? And whenever I would walk in as a woman, petite, you know, I'd walk in with, you know, a colleague who reported to me but was a man. Unfailingly, they would always go to him first to shake his hand. And I always found it quite funny. And I essentially left it for him to, you know, to do the needful. And he would also say, you know, this is my boss. And they would be so surprised, but pleasantly surprised. So it wasn't in a way that was, you know, discriminatory, but again, it's speaking to, you know, legacy perceptions and traditional roles that, you know, typically, some people have in the back of their minds. But over time, of course, with seeing myself, you know, and over time, you know, they became familiar and comfortable with the fact that there is a woman in the room having these conversations and, making impactful change. And that's really been the case throughout my career. People are sometimes surprised, but generally pleasantly surprised. I wouldn't say that, I've experienced explicit discrimination. And that's one of the great things about Nigeria, actually, in my time here. Women occupy leadership positions, and comfortably so. The representation is, relatively high. But I will acknowledge the fact that I am in an urban area, Lagos, which is very diverse from a cultural perspective, from an ethnic perspective, and from a gender perspective as well. And I cannot assume it represents other parts of Nigeria. We know that, for example, in other parts of Nigeria, there's a higher percentage of, children and women, girls that are out of school. We know that, women are in certain parts of Nigeria, women are more likely to stay back in the house as opposed to going out to work for various reasons. We even know that, there's some instances where, a family would rather invest in the man, than the woman in terms of, creating wealth for the family. So there are definitely still, cultural, contexts and mind shifts required. But, in terms of my experience, I think it's been great. And I also have I make it a point, to promote, this sort of equity, and also to come from a perspective of understanding that women and men are different. They bring different perspectives to the table, but also encourage and ensure that, training development and then some nuanced female experiences, shall I say, are taken into consideration, in the course of work as well.
Thank you, Kofo. Kunta?
Yeah, very, very interesting. So let me start with a summary to say that is the stereotyping still there? Yes. Is it changing? Yes. So I got into a conversation sometimes last year with someone, and he was to make certain promotion decisions in the organization, and it was caught between promoting a particular lady who is doing excellently well, but the position that would be the position they're being promoted into requires some things that are more that men are more inclined to do, like staying late in the club and all of those things. And the chap was in a very crossroad to say, do I put this other person who is not as who is not performing as much as this lady, or do I just put this lady there and take a risk that we might lose some deals because she can't go to late night clubs and the rest of them? And one of the things I said is, over the years, what has the results shown? Has there been consistency in her performance, or this is just a one-off performance? And it came out as being consistent, and then give it to whom it deserved. Because for me, it's the stereotyping to think that, particularly again, when you look at closing deals and closing businesses, when they say that it's at the bar that these businesses, to me, it's just a stereotype that we need to all go beyond. It's about what value can you bring to the table. And if I speak from where I work, I think I'm not taking the statistics, but I can almost bet that we have more women at Apex than we do have men. And this is even considering that this is a commodity space where it should be male dominated. Take, for instance, the head of our collateral management is a woman, and she's done extremely well. Covering 186 locations across the country meant that she was going to constantly be on the road and the rest of it. And she's been able to balance it beautifully well with other aspects of her life. The other stereotyping that, and I think this goes to the female gender, where they say work-life balance, or maybe across. To be honest, I really do not. And that's one of the reasons why the women folk are being shortchanged in their career. When they say, okay, I'm doing this work-life balance, I'm picking family over For me, I really never believe in the stereotype of work-life balance. There can't be work-life balance. There would always be one thing at certain stages of your life that are most important. And at that time, once you have the right support system to help you go through that phase will come and will go. But that shouldn't be because you're trying to put certain aspect of your life much more important as the society has made us to be and to believe. And then you're just pretty much shortchanging yourself, or even the society has controlled that narrative to say, oh, if I promote a female to this stage and she's in a childbearing phase, will she be able to deliver value? First and foremost, whether it's male or female, there's nothing like work-life balance. In your career, in your growth in life, there would always be something that is super critical. And you having the right support system is what will determine how successful you will go through that phase and how quickly you will go through that phase. So that stereotyping, it's changing, but it's still there. From where we need to be, it's still there's still a lot of work to be done, but it's changing. Thank you.
Yeah, over to you, Laura.
Yeah, okay. I mean, I almost have nothing to add. I think very similar to Kofo. I have I've not experienced any sort of gender discrimination in any real way, in any sort of negative way that I felt impacted me. And maybe that's why, as I've said before, I'm more focused on equity, and because I really haven't felt held back by my gender. I haven't felt held back by my color, for example. I mean, like when I worked abroad, I didn't feel that the fact that I was Black made any difference to how I was treated. And I don't think the fact that I'm a woman has really made any difference. I will say that, when Funto was speaking, I do recall having conversations that when I look back now, I can see, there was, an element of that gender thing. So for example, when Funto was speaking about promoting women or hiring women who are in their childbearing phase, or maybe you have a sort of a newly married woman and, the concern you may have as to whether or not she can be 100% with you because you know that she's going to have a child at some point, or you think, and then she's going to be gone for maybe a year, maybe 6 months, and she's going to come back, and then she needs to have like doctor visits. It's endless with babies. Doctor visit here, there. And I've had those conversations, and I've heard those things being mentioned when people are talking about women's careers and promoting women and advancing them in their careers. As I said, I haven't necessarily seen it hold back anybody that I know in terms of where I've been part of conversations and things like that. But, when she was speaking, it did resonate because, people do talk about those things. I do think it's changing. Kofo mentioned maybe it's just the fact that we're in Lagos, so maybe that makes it change a lot more apparent. So maybe if you're out of Lagos, if you're in other parts of the country or even the world, women may be, and not even maybe, I mean, we see the research, we see on TV, where women are held back, not as educated, even in not even explicit discrimination. So for example, you have situations where even just how women are required to conduct themselves during their time of the month, for example, can be something that can hold back the education or the work life of a woman, of a girl. So you hear those stories in parts of the world, even today, that shows that we still have a lot of work, and which is obviously why International Women's Month even exists, just to advocate for the girl child, for the woman everywhere, so that we are all in a place where we can be treated equitably and all given an equal chance to contribute and to succeed. So that advocacy, I think, is something that helps all of us to break the stereotype, where it does exist. And if you're fortunate, enough to be in a world where it's not as explicit, then, you sort of just count yourself blessed that you're able to succeed.
Right, I think it's my turn now. Right. Okay. So thank you, ladies. I think you've all, answered the question, excellently well. And like Laura said, I almost have nothing else to add. But I will say that, these gender biases exist, and it's important that we've all acknowledged as much. However, there are, those implicit biases and stereotypes that can actually exclude women from the decision-making process, and even opportunities for career advancement. But what I will say, and that, what the conversation would also, what I want, to charge people with in the course of this conversation is that what are the resources or what are the policies or how can we support one another to ensure that these biases don't stick? Right. I've also been fortunate in the course of my career. I know people have said, oh, if you have a female boss, ooh, woe is you and all of that, or woe is yours, but on the contrary, I've been very fortunate. At the beginning of my career, even up until now, I've had a lot of female role models. I've had a lot of bosses that have been rooting for me, and I've learned firsthand, even before I even knew it was a thing, about the power of sponsorship. Right? So it's not just enough to have like a female mentor, a male mentor, or what have you. It's also important to have that person who will mention your name in the room when an opportunity actually comes up, right? And so all of us, around the room should also look at ways that we can actually provide that opportunity, for the women coming behind us. And so when I was joining Emerging Africa, like 5 years, well, I'll be 5 years in Emerging Africa by October. And I remember my group CEO, Mrs. Twain, and she said to me, Ada, when she was trying to woo me from United Capital to Emerging Africa, and she said to me, you know what, Ada, we're building, an organization that where you can pretty much write your own ticket. That's what she said to me. You can write your own ticket here. Come and do the work, and you will be, amply rewarded. There'll be opportunities for you to grow and excel. And I have seen that playing out firsthand, right? And so it's important, that when we do get a seat at the table, right, what do you then do with it? You're given that opportunity. What then do you do with it to actually break the biases and, kill those biases that come out that, oh, women can't be expected to be at Ikoyi Club for an 8 p.m. meeting because obviously she has to get home and help the children do their homework and things like that. So it's important that, representation is increased. We continue to support one another. So we stand on the shoulders of those that have gone on before us. And I think we're also privileged in financial services. It's a place where there's a lot of representation, female representation. But what I would like to see is that also translating even to other sectors, right? And so, I'll just talk a little bit about what I perceive about the commodities market, because I find that there are lots of challenges, or there are a number of challenges that hinder the growth of women in this space, and so we talk about the fact that it involves a complex value chain that includes producers, traders, processors, consumers, and the like. And each of these players have a specific role to play in the market. And so the interactions, between ourselves and the male folk will actually determine the prices and availability of commodities, right? And so, for instance, women are often the primary producers of food and other agricultural products, which are the primary commodities that are traded in the market, right? But however, despite their significant contributions, women are often marginalized and often excluded from the decision-making processes that can ultimately impact their livelihoods. And so it's important, in harnessing, because that's the topic that we've been given to talk about today. And all of this is just, feeding into the wider conversation, the wider topic. It's important that we harness the power of these African markets, the Nigerian markets, to actually empower women by recognizing and addressing those challenges that women face, at every stage of the commodities market value chain. And so we should have a multi-stakeholder approach. I think it was Kofi that mentioned about government policies and all of that can actually, help to address some of these challenges, between, the government, the private sector, and all this should ultimately focus on creating, more inclusive policies and practices. Ultimately, that would, ensure that, women are helped, to actually succeed in the industry and, drive economic growth and, the sustainable development that we want to see across our country and the continent at large. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ada. And I think that really leads us into the last question, because I'm also looking at the time and hoping that we're able to round up. I think this has been so insightful, so insightful for me, and I hope it has been for everyone who is attending and participating. Also, if you have questions, do drop it while we get on to the last question before we get into the Q&A. And I think that it feeds off from Ada's comment. How do we then encourage more women to consider, and I think I'm going to really broaden this even more to say, how do we encourage women to feel to remove the fear and step into a place of leadership, especially within the African capital market, financial market space, and just what would be your advice to women to be able to step into bigger opportunities when it comes to them? I'll start off with Funtar, Kofo, Laura, Ada. Hi, Funtar. Okay.
Sorry, I missed what you said. I was a bit distracted.
I said I was asking, how do we then encourage more women to, remove the fear and grab the bigger opportunities as it comes to them, especially within the African financial market space, and the tech space and the ag space. So yes.
I think for me, I'll go back to what I started with, where I mentioned that first you are human, right? Understand that and clear that in your mind. And once you can clear that, it helps you, takes you out of whatever stereotype, at least helps you create a defense mechanism against whatever stereotyping that anyone would want to throw across your path. Once you've cleared that in your mind, be audacious or be bold to create your big audacious goals to how do you want to play in that in the capital market, particularly for young people that are probably in their undergraduate or still trying to decide what career path that they should go. Create your big audacious goal. Identify people or the support system that can make this happen. Just like, I'm not sure whether it was Kofo that mentioned it, do well to network with people that can lend their voices to you in places that you cannot speak up for yourself. I think with those, you begin to then get more women involved or rise in their career or become more prominent in the capital markets, in technology, in engineering. Thank you.
Thank you, Funtar. Kofo.
Thank you. Thanks, Funtar. I would say that, from my own personal experience, I would definitely have to agree with Ada in terms of having someone to speak for you when you're not in the room, particularly as you grow in leadership roles. These roles generally tend not to be
I think her network. Oh, hi, Kofo. Can you still? Okay. Okay, you're back.
Okay, yeah, apologies. Because, as I'm not sure where it cut out, but what I was saying was that, just leveraging what Ada said. Okay, it's playing up. Maybe I'll go after someone else. My network is playing up a little bit. I'll go after someone else.
Okay, Laura, do you want to go? Then we'll come back to Kofo.
Okay, this was one question that I thought about a lot in terms of, when you asked it, just trying to think about the ways we support each other. I watched a movie about feminism, and where it all came from. And, what struck me about it was that feminism, it's become so many things now, and it's being used to explain all sorts of crazy, good, bad behavior, call it what you will. But feminism really came from a place of offering women the freedom to choose, because women were, at a place where every woman, you finished, you were of a certain age, you had to get married, have children, and that was it. And that was your path. That path was laid out for you just because of the agenda. And what the feminist movement was just trying to do was to say a woman can choose. Now, a woman can choose to be a a housewife, a homemaker, and there's nothing wrong with that. And I think that is the, we've almost gone like full circle the other way, where it's like we're trying to push all women to excel in careers when they really may not want to. So that for me is the reason why I feel, first of all, everyone is a feminist or should be a feminist, because it really is about allowing women the freedom to choose what they want to do. If you want to be a homemaker and you raise, 5 children, that's great. If you want to be childless, that's fine as well. If you want to have a great career, that's fine. If you want, it's really is about promoting and allowing women to have that freedom to choose. And the one thing that I feel like holds back a lot of women, and if I use me personally, when I think it was Kafua that was speaking, she spoke about networking and about being able to be effective as a networker. And that's something that certainly I struggle with, but I think it helps in building a career, being able to toot your own horn, to blow your own trumpets, to put yourself out there, and in a position where somebody can speak for you. Because to be honest, to have a sponsor or a mentor speak for you, you first of all have to put yourself out there to be mentored. And even that, sometimes even taking that step to be open with somebody else, to be vulnerable with somebody else so they can help you, can sometimes be, it's an active decision that I think all women should take advantage of. In fact, all people, to be honest, take advantage of in terms of trying to grow themselves. The other concern that often happens, I think Kunto spoke about managing your career and your home life, balancing. I think I also heard a saying about juggling balls and understanding that some balls are glass and some are plastic. Some balls can drop and you can pick them back up, and some balls can drop and you can never pick it back up. And it is for you to, again, if you think back to what I said about what feminism is, you have to decide for yourself, which are your important glass balls and which are your balls that are plastic that you can drop and pick them back up. And it's about them building a lifestyle, a career, etc., that allows you to juggle, your glass balls, and knowing that your balls can change at any time. For example, I've dropped balls in the past that turned out to be my glass balls, and it's difficult to walk it back when you make that kind of mistake. And you sort of spend a lifetime trying to correct, that mistake. So it's important to be deliberate with yourself, say, look, this is a glass ball. I'm going to hold this thing carefully. I'm going to try and, build my life around these balls I'm juggling, and I can drop these ones and come back to them later on, pick them back up. And it really is just about making that choice. And, there's an element of being fortunate to work either in a company or in situations that, maybe have the policies, the procedures to support you. So for example, even as little as allowing women have maternity leave, to feel comfortable that they can go and have a child and come back 6 months later and pick up where they left off, is something that I think gives women a lot of confidence to build their careers, because they don't feel like maybe the 6 years I'm having children is like zero in my career, because you can go for 6 months, you can come back. And so being able to, having those policies, advocating for those policies where you can, so where you're in a leadership position and you can advocate for those kinds of policies that also support women to have equity, to be, is I think very important. And lastly, for me, webinars like this, advocacy, as we said, just ways that we're promoting the sectors and just helping women understand that we need to be free to step up. To be honest, women, I think, face difficulty. The things that we've talked about, I think we face them in all sectors, in all aspects of life. And it's just about deciding for yourself, who am I? What do I want to do? What path do I want to choose? And following that path, as we say, with your full chest. Don't let anybody sort of tell you that, no, as a woman, you must be a certain way. We don't want to go the other way and lose the essence of feminism, which was allowing everybody make their own path.
Kofo, do you want to step in now? Thank you so much, Laura. Thank you.
Yes, speaking to what Laura sort of mentioned, the reality is gender biases do exist. We're in a transition whereby we're going from, the traditional legacy roles, and those roles are changing. So what that means is that, there are existing structures in place. whereby, in our careers, we've alluded to the fact that, there's actually been a lot more balance, but there's actually been a level of intentionality around that. I know that CBN has a couple of policies that encourage, women at board level and things like that. What we're seeing is the result of those initiatives and standing on the shoulders of those that came before us. But also, with the way, speaking to, going to clubs and closing deals, and, there is a structure already whereby, men do engage and dialogue. And from those conversations, opportunities are discussed. And, wherever that could be, it could be at a football game, it could be at a basketball game, it could be on the golf course, it could be at their parlor, their pursuit, whatever, right? There's so many avenues for men to engage, which is why, networking opportunity and forums like this are so important, because there is a need for intentionality. And that really comes from the fact that, women are traditionally more likely to stay home for various reasons, right? But now, there's a transition happening where women are, being more impactful in the community, stepping out more. But there should also be avenues for women to engage in dialogue. As a woman myself, I'm still quite traditional. Networking for me is something that, is a never-ending muscle that I'm developing. Especially after the pandemic, leaving the house has become quite a task. So, there definitely needs to be more intentionality around creating, opportunities for women to dialogue, to engage, to network, uplift, and motivate one another. And of course, once you see that, you have that support, you have that network, they're willing to support you, grow you, develop you. When opportunities come up, they'll speak to you about it, they'll mentor you for you to be able to take those roles and be successful in those positions, which is what men do, actually, but it's unspoken, right? Then I think that, for women, we're going to see a lot more change, but it's happening already, but there definitely needs to be more intentionality around creating opportunities for women to network, engage, and dialogue. And also have that opportunity for sponsorship, mentorship, and to have people speak for one another when we're not in the respective rooms. So these are sort of soft skills that will definitely have impact on one's career and should not be ignored, actually. So that's what I would like to charge those listening in to, don't be like me, don't stay in the house all the time, that's a joke, but really take the opportunity to network, go out, meet people, and be excited to meet people, learn about new people, what experiences they've had in life and how that can impact and develop you, and vice versa as well. Myself, I do have, people that I mentor, men and women actually. And it's always interesting to see the difference between the men and women. Speaking to audacity again, the men are more audacious, women are more reticent. So the muscles that have to be developed for both, right, differ slightly, but that again goes to equity as well, understanding the differences, how they complement, the world of work and society, and how we can create impact, but in our own way. I always want to, communicate and educate around the fact that men and women are different, we're complementary, and we bring different things to the table, but we can all be impactful and we can all bring value to any table that we're sat at.
Thank you so much, Kofu, Ada.
Okay, so I've been left with the shorter end of the stick this afternoon because I literally have nothing else to say. I mean, they've just done an amazing job of, just outlining some of the things that we can actually do. So just to buttress, one or two things, that have already been mentioned. I think it's a French actress. I think her name is Edith Piaf. There's a popular quote that's attributed to her, and she said that when you get to the top of the building, right, when you get to that penthouse, when you get to the penthouse floor, you do well as a woman to send the elevator down, right, to pick up other people down the rung. And so we've spoken quite, extensively about the power of, finding great mentors and, the icing on the cake, which is also getting sponsors who can actually mention your names in, in the rooms that actually matter. And so we have that obligation, right, to send the elevator down. So wherever you are now is literally somebody's prayer point, right? You might feel you haven't really arrived, but wherever you are, there are people that are looking up to you and feeling, oh, I wish I could be like, so Miss So-and-so or Mrs. So-and-so. And so when you do find yourself, upstairs or in the penthouse, or even if you're still in mid-level, right, we would all do well to send the elevator down to pick up, the women that are coming behind us. And so I think we should also go out of our way to really try to look out for people that we can mentor and sponsor. And then to, those of us that then want to be mentored and sponsored, how do you show up? I mean, really, how do you show up? Because the truth of the matter is that I don't want a situation whereby we as women become entitled. Oh, we have to be helped. We have to be pushed up the rung and all of that. When you do get these opportunities, how do you show up? I have a friend who said to me, she said, Ada, you know what? I don't care. She says she wants board seats, right? That's what she's looking out for this year, that she wants board seats. And she said to me, you know what, Ada, I don't mind if I'm the token female director in the room, right? I don't really care. But when they let me into that room, I will show up guns blazing, right? So they will now know that, in as much as it was tokenism for them to bring me on board, they will see the value, that I bring on, to bear. And so how do you show up? When you do get those opportunities to, to get to those positions, to be sponsored, to be mentored and all that, please don't let people down. Don't let your mentors down. Don't let your sponsors down. Show up with your A game, right? Come there guns blazing. Well, not literally, but you know what I mean? Show up guns blazing, and why, and actually establish why, or validate why you should actually be let into the room or, given a seat at that table. And then while you're waiting for your big break, right? There's also the importance of being able to, continuously improving yourself. So go for all the courses, go for all the conferences, just be a sponge, keep on soaking up as much information as you can about your sector, become that thought leader, maximize your platforms, right? So instead of just doing funny stuff on Instagram, you can actually start, establishing or cementing your position or your expertise, using your social media platform. So LinkedIn is a great resource. I don't think anybody should be playing around on LinkedIn, right? It's a great platform, and people have gone on to do great and amazing things, or have been given great and amazing opportunities because of how they've shown up on LinkedIn. You know what I mean? And so those are some of the things I just wanted to mention. So continue to improve yourself, continue to maximize your platform. Even if you're, a recipient of the tokenism and all that, show up guns blazing, and the sky will literally be your stepping stone. And then when you do arrive at the penth floor or the penthouse floor, do well to send the elevator down. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much. Oof. I think that Zara and I have been sitting here. Zara has been taking a lot of notes. And I just think that this has been really, really insightful for me. And I hope it has been for everyone here. And just a lot of points have been made, very important points. Having women in the room speak to you, that's collaboration, creating opportunities for women to network, work-life balance, and understanding that you should know your glass bowls and plastic bowls, tooting your own horn as much as possible when you get to those rooms and get those opportunities. Always show up gun blazing and don't let the door close for other women, and just building capacity. And I think that this has really been very insightful. I think that in February, my boss sent me for an event, and he's like, I want you to go network, get to meet more people. And I was so scared. I was so scared. And luckily, or funny enough, I got to the event and I met a woman just randomly. We were all talking, having lunch, and we started talking. And that's how, she kind of started introducing me to people who introduced me to more people, and so made the networking process very easy for me. And things like that, just being able to build those capacities, networking skills, and tooting your own horn, which I find that women just generally, we kind of try to bring ourselves small a little bit on that aspect. So I think this has been very exciting, and I don't know if we still have time to take questions. I feel like we've shot over our time by an extra 15 minutes, and I don't want to keep everyone, because I know it's still middle of work day. So please, if you have questions, do send across to us, and we will get to answer them or share with the panelists to answer, and we will share back to you. And we're hoping to, take this conversation even bigger, and bring everyone physically to actually have these conversations. So thank you so much, Ada. Thank you so much, Kofo. Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Funtar. Thank you, Zara. Thank you, Zara, for making our time. And thank you, everyone who attended. Just thank you so much for your openness and being so genuine with your thoughts and knowledge that you shared. And I think that, this has been really great. This has been really great. Thank you so much. Does anyone have any last words before we close? I see Funto has wanted to say something. Okay, any last words before we, properly end this? Last words to, people who have attended.
Okay, so I just saw an interesting comment from Ezekiel Bumi Eregbe. And he says that it's very interesting for him as a man to listen to very intelligent personalities. Thank you very much. And then he says that he's gained a lot, even though he attended for the purpose of learning how to best help his young daughter prepare for the future. I'm just like, oh my God, we have done, if that's all we've been able to achieve here today, then ladies, I think we've done an excellent job. So thank you, Ezekiel.
Really
we love to see you. I know, right? It's really good to see, the he's for she, just stepping up and, being a support to us, because really and truly, I don't know who mentioned that we're complementary to one another and not competitive to one another. So it's, it's great that he's interested in learning how best to help his young daughter prepare for the future. And so even in terms of how he guides his daughter through life, this sort of gentleman will be one that will encourage his daughter to, to aspire to be anything, that she wants to be in life. And I think that's really the goal of all of this. When women are taught that we have the freedom to choose, so if you decide to become an astronaut, or you decide to be a stay-at-home mom, there's really nothing wrong with it. It's just about what you want to do and, just being enabled to be the best version of yourself. And so I just thought to just highlight that, I think it's a great comment. Thank you, Mr. Ezekiel.
Yeah, that gave me goosebumps.
Thank you all. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you so much. Do enjoy the rest of your day. And yes, I think Zara, okay. Do enjoy the rest of your day. And I'm hoping that when we invite you to have this in a physical setting later on in the year, that everyone will be available for it. So yes, thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Bye.
Thank you all. Have a good day.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone, very much.